This vlog is going to be centering on my reread of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and today we are starting with Gardens of the Moon. So with this reread, I didn't really have any particulars when I started it. I just wanted to make dedicated time diving into my favorite series of all time, while also trying to find all my favorite lore stuff, events, people, places, things that I want to have access to more quickly and reference. So that is why this reread is happening. So when I was prepping to do this reread, I realized that I probably wanted to read The Knight of Knives by Esslemont, and that is because Knight of Knives focuses on the night that the Empire's ruler changed people. And this is very significant for Gardens of the Moon, because in Gardens of the Moon, we literally open with Ganos Paran, I think as a child, maybe right after this night happening. And I was like, you know what, it'd just be fun to start with this first. So I did that. It took me only a couple of days to read. Had a great time. I will say, the way this is told between two POVs, I really wish we only stuck with one, because the other person really just felt forced into her role and the veteran didn't. And I liked him a lot more because he also gave a lot more lore for the Empire, where she was just very naive and young and just happened to fall into these events, just happened to be there because she's nosy. So though this was a fun read to get back into it, I do realize now this wasn't the most perfect book in the world, but I'm glad I did do the reread because it got me ready to be back in Gardens of the Moon. So here they are. This is actually my original version of the book that I bought back in 2012, maybe 12 or 13. I am nervous to write in this book, but I already have, because I have finally decided what the tabs are going to be, and I want to tell you them now before I officially start reading this. So I have 5 tabs that I'm keeping tabs on, and the first one is Death of Significant Character. I am hoping to tab away all of those characters that I will most likely cry about because of their deaths, and then in my journal I do want to take a note of who that death is, just in case I need to find it again for whatever reference. Next is cool shit. Could be anything. It's so general that I can't wait to just put this in so many random places. The next tab is parts where I laughed. So snorting, chuckling a little bit, and then full on belly laughing. Anything of those happen, I am tabbing. Okay, the next tab though is when I cry. And I've already cried opening the book up to the very first page that just says you're starting the Malazan Book of the Fallen, just so you know this is about people who have fallen. I fully started crying. I did not realize how emotional I would be because of it. So I don't know if I'll tab that necessarily. I feel like that beginning and the end in The Crippled God are both just gonna make me bawl every time. I don't need to bookmark that. But all the other parts where I cry, yeah, I'm pretty sure this tab will be close or in relation to the first tab where there might be a significant death. Okay, and the last tab is lore. Literally, there's so much lore, and I don't have enough tabs that just one color is going to be whatever I find interesting that I want to make sure I have noted. That lore will be noted. And that's all my tabs. Yeah, there's not a lot, but also if I did a lot, then I'd be very overwhelmed. So I'm glad I'm only dealing with 5 colors. And now I have to start reading this book. I'm not sure how I'm going to be breaking up me interjecting and like giving you updates, because this will be throughout the month of January, but I am hopeful that I will do enough updates that this is intriguing. And at this point, I'm going to give you a spoiler warning. If you have not read Gardens of the Moon, you will be fully spoiled in this video. And if that's what you want, that's great. But if you haven't read Gardens of the Moon and you're hoping to read it, I wouldn't be here. I'd go to someone else who has a spoiler-free review. My spoiler-free review is you should definitely start reading Gardens of the Moon. So that's it for the warning. I hope you enjoy this video / vlog. I'm not really sure what else is going to be put in here besides the reread, but I hope you enjoy it. And I'll see you when I have an update. This is my second time recording this because I forgot to put on this. That's fun. All of my genuine first takes are just gone. Let's start this again. I'm 100 pages or more into the Gardens of the Moon right now, and I wanted to say some of my thoughts. We are in the middle of a chapter that is very close to the second half of the second book, which is Darujistan, and I'm in the middle of a conversation with Tattersail and some of the bridge burners about what's in store, what they have plans for, and how they're trying to get rid of Tashrin. Is it Tashrin or Tashrin? Because his nickname in some other books is Tay, Tay. So is it Tashrin? I pronounce it Tashrin. I think it sounds better. Somewhere Erikson has corrected how to pronounce that man's name. But anyways, that's what they're in the middle of a conversation of. How's the tabbing going? Tabbing's going great. I feel as though the lore tab needs to transition to a different color and me just have like a thick stack of that color of tab because I am going through so many and I'm barely just breaching 100 pages. Cryotab has not been used yet, though I've been close. The laugh tabs have been used. A lot of them are just like one-liners from some of these mages or sappers because as always they have that like dry, sarcastic, dead tone to half of their lines and it's always so funny talking to bridge burners. Like I love whenever we're interacting with them. So Picker's introduction was really funny, along with Ansi. The tab for death has been now used once, and I thought it was going to be for someone else, but it was for Night Chill. I have really grown attached to her as a character because of the Path to Ascendancy series. If I remember correctly, it was one page, she was alive, the next page, she is dead. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This woman is amazing. This woman is incredible. And she's terrifying. And she's dead. Obviously, I do remember that there's more to Night Chill because I remember in the first book, like her having a conversation with Tattersail. So clearly we're not there yet, but we'll get there. Oh, cool shit. That's the other tab. One of the cool shit times is it's basically anytime the deck of dragons is used. I find it one of the coolest things and it's obviously adjacent to tarot reading. The other cool shit event that happened was the mage battle. The start of Pale's master mage battle was like insanely good. I forgot what that was like to read. I remember being impressed with it the first time. Anyways, besides that, I don't have any more updates. I've had some surprises, like I didn't realize Ganos was talking to Whiskey Jack. Like I did not remember that in the first chapter. I didn't remember that Sari was next to a witch right before she turned into Sari. Forgot about the hound sort of. And then immediately when I started reading it, I was like, oh right, I remember that. Completely forgot Lorne's name because I only know Tavore. And then, oh, Tak the Younger. I knew and saw his name in the Dramatis Personae at the beginning of the book, but I did not realize when he was going to be coming in, and him being the person that leads Pran into Pale, essentially, was wild, especially because he's already hurt due to what just transpired in Pale. God, that trajectory of that man's life is about to be so hard to read, but he's also kind of one of my favorite characters to follow because he has such an interesting story. So we're holding out for you, Tak the Younger. Pour one out for that man. He'll need it for the rest of the time we're in this story. So the next time I'm talking with you guys will be officially in Darujhistan, and I think a lot more characters are showing up that I'm excited to see. Some favorites, some not favorites if I remember correctly. We'll see what else surprises me and what I have completely forgotten. Okay, I am finally here with another update. I'm about 230 pages in, so almost to chapter 10, and I am still in the third section, which is called The Mission in Gardens of the Moon. So let me talk about Darujhistan because that's where we're currently, but I also didn't make an update during that book because that one, I think it's one of the shortest sections in the book, so I was like, I don't have much to say about this, so I'm gonna just keep on reading until I have some more things to say, and now I do. So what was the problem with Darujhistan's section? Honestly, that section of this book was just set up, and I found it kind of boring. Now, some of our major players are finally involved. We have Krupp, we've got Kull, we've got Murillo, we've got Ralik, and we've got Crocus. Then we have High Alchemist Baruch and his little servant guy, and then Crone. Crone I forgot existed. She's kind of one of my favorite characters though because she genuinely has lived so long as much as the Tist and I that like she's just got more perspective and she's fun. I kind of forget what happens to her in the end of the series and I'm kind of afraid to look it up on the wiki fandom pages, so I'm not gonna do that. We get the dynamics of the Assassin's Guild and like that starting to have a civil war, as well as what the council members are trying to get in the nobility, that specifically one guy just wants to get neutrality so that he can be one of those nobles that survives the purge from the Malazan Empire, and I don't know if he's going to survive the purge in his own city, so we'll see about that. When it comes to the next section, the mission, way more interesting because we're back with our bridge burners, which the greatest group of all time. We're getting more into what they are deciding to do and some more information, especially with the Moranth. The Moranth is such an interesting group, and unfortunately we don't get a lot about them like ever. And I don't know if in some of the other books that I have not read, I don't know if they talk more about the Moranth, but I really wish there was some history with them because they're such an interesting group, and there's something that was just talked about with Whiskey Jack and one of the Black Moranth that I really want to know more information about. And that's because Whiskey Jack was part of a commanding force, and apparently the Moranth either worked with them or in conjunction with the Malazan Empire when Whiskey Jack was a commander, and so there's some residual loyalty there, which, of course, Whiskey Jack and Dude Jack One Arm can do no wrong in my book. We then are having paired off the bridge burners a little bit, and unfortunately are two idiots, which I lovingly give to both Fiddler and Hedge and Quick Ben and Callum, but this time it's for Quick Ben and Callum. They will have Sorry with them, and they're going to be doing something else, but the rest of the bridge burners are going to be doing some construction work around the city, which has been hinted at already in one of the chapters. So I think Baruch had a comment about like, it seems like they're yelling at each other more than actually doing work, which seems odd. And I'm like, no, that's just them. That's how they get shit done. It's so fucking funny. I love the bridge burners. They're so funny. I'm so glad they exist. What else? We also had a conversation with Rake and Baruch that was really, really interesting that I loved. I think that was in the Darujistan section, but that conversation I really loved because it puts in perspective who Rake is. And he is someone who's like, if you are loyal, you show up. Why the fuck would you leave your people behind? Specifically talking about the mages that left Pale. And he's also for his people also a note about Moonspawn lore, which at the time of reading this, I don't remember this line, but it's probably because it's never mentioned again. But on Moonspawn, there are children. There are elderly people. There is a whole Tis and I like constituents that are there. So learning about Moonspawn in that regard was really cool. I wish there was more going into that, and there probably is with the prequel series that Erikson is currently completing, which I'm very excited for, but I haven't touched that prequel series because I wanted it to be complete before I started reading it, so we'll get there. I don't think there's anything else that I really want to add or mention. That was kind of like the highlights. So probably when I get back to you guys, it'll probably be in the middle of all of the drama that is happening. Also, I do remember that the Crimson Guard shows up at some point in here, and they cross with Crocus, but I don't know how far in the book that is. I feel like it's like right at the end, all of a sudden the Crimson Guard shows up. Anyways, it'll make sense by the end of this book. I'll see you guys in the next one. So I do have to apologize on this update. It is very late. I have finished the book. Actually, that's how behind I am with updating. This week has been kind of emotionally distressing. If you've been keeping up with the news in the United States, you might know why. I don't want to get too into it, but because of that, reading has become very difficult to focus, and so I kind of just focused so hard that I finished the book. Because of that, I wasn't doing a lot of updates. I was just focusing on I need to like do this thing because it's the only thing that's like holding me to normalcy. This section we're going to focus on the rest of the book. I'm going to do the best I can to bring in everything that I can remember. And then I'm going to do a follow-up to everything, tell you like stats, how many tabs I used, just like some rounded out thoughts. Also my final rating for the book because it's not going to be 5 stars. I'm going to tell you that much. And unfortunately, Gardens of the Moon doesn't have like everything I want from a fantasy book, but it's still pretty damn good. So don't worry about that. But anyways, let's talk about like 200 plus pages of this book. Let's start with the next 2 sections, which were the mission and assassins. Both of these are going in between Pale and Darujistan again. When we go to Pale, we're focusing on the fight between Dujek and Tashrin. They are not equals in how they viewed Pale should be taken over and put into the Empire. Then we have Adjunct Lorne finally coming in. In this section, Tak the Younger actually saves her. None of her group survives that was supposed to come with her, except for the Talana Mas, known as Tool. I'm so excited he's here. He gives a lot of lore drops, which is great. He's very deadpan, and I love that about Tool so much. So also at this point in Pale, Tattersail and Paran are trying to figure out like how are they leaving, how are they getting through. Also Tattersail for a time frame is like out. Hairlock and Ganos are trying to figure out like how to keep people away from her room as she's healing from the fight that just happened with the Hound. It gets to a point where Adjunct Lorne has multiple conversations with the top people, and then she wants to have a discussion and dinner with Tattersail involved. I really like the tension tension that was brought up here. I loved that we only got it from Tok the Younger. We get to see how soldiers protect their own, and I really love that. That's kind of one of the things about this series that I love, is the found family aspect of it, and so I think this really shines in this one scene. After that is when we get people starting to split away again. So Adject Lorne is going to go on her way with Tool and leaves really early in the morning. We also have Paran and Tok the Younger leaving maybe like a couple of days after that, because Tattersail also leaves before them. And then during this time, we have another important death, which is Tattersail. I knew this was going to happen. I remember it happening. It still hurts, but I love seeing the reactions from the other viewpoints. This like shaft of light that all of a sudden is like seen for miles around. I think also in the mission section, we get the understanding of what the bridge burners are up to, specifically like how they're making sure they're not going to die and somehow survive the blowing up of Darujhistan. I know that happens somewhere in the middle of this. In the assassin section, it is the one where we're kind of at the peak of what's happening to the guild. We see Callum and Quickben trying to get in contact with assassins and it's not working. And this is also when we see Quickben trying to figure out what's going on with Hairlock. We also get Sari, who is told by Whiskey Jack to follow Croup around, figure out what he's up to. And in consequence of that, she figures out like that whole small group and then lets Callum know, go to this inn because there's an assassin there. We then get Callum getting into a trap. The Assassin's Guild thinks that the Empire is actually a part of the war that's going on. It's not. They get tricked into another trick. Well, they get tricked into a trap from the Tist and I, and that was a time. In this scene, we also get the first demon we like actually see come out from a vial that Quickben had, and then we also get to learn about Dragonpur, the sword that is on the back of Animander Rake. And that then goes into the next section. So the Gadrobi Hills, we have Adjunct Lorne and Tool going towards the Tyrant's tomb. We then have Crone looking around, doing some stuff, and then we have Ganos Paran and Tok the Younger who are following in the footsteps of Tattersail and then subsequently Lorne. And this is where we get the truth of what happened to Tattersail a little bit, kind of. We also get in this, I think the first chapter and first section of the chapter is the rebirth of Tattersail, which if you've read this story before, you know it's not truly the rebirth of her, but there's a rebirth happening that Croup is at. And then we get to the point where we have the main event, I feel like, of this section, which is Ganos meeting Animander Rake. Hairlock does an ambush on Tok the Younger and Ganos Paran. Tok the Younger goes flying through a Warren portal into chaos. Hairlock says, I'm gonna kill you. Ganos Paran is like, fuck. And then Hairlock gets locked into place because part of Quickben's stuff is he made a deal with Shadowthrone, and that whole scene was great. That was from, I think, the last section. So then Hairlock dies, and the hounds are there, Shadowthrone's there, and then all of a sudden Animander Rake is there. He fights the hounds. Two of the hounds die, and he tells Shadowthrone, get your ass out of here. Darujhistan is none of your business. And Shadowthrone's like, hee hee, well, I'm not there, but my friend is. And he's like, yeah, get him out of there. Shadowthrone's like, fine. And then Shadowthrone departs. Rake looks back at Paran and goes, thoughts? And Paran just shrugs. I love this interaction so much. I don't know if it's just the like, I'm not scared of you, but also I feel so threatened that all I can think of doing is shrugging, or if it's just Paran being like, weird shit keeps happening to me, I'm just gonna accept it at this point. Like, I feel like Bran is just so done. And it's really, really funny. And the fact that you're doing it to Rake, like that's the person who's getting all of Ganos's I could give less of a shit attitude, is hilarious to me. But then Ganos makes a choice that to this day, I don't know why he did this, like why he touched the blood of the hound, but he then gets transferred into Dragonpur. We have a whole scene there that's really interesting, and I really loved how this scene played out. I think it really shows how much just chance and luck can get you through things, and Ganos was very lucky. I think the rest of the chapter is Baruch telling Croup that his group needs to go into the hills because he wants eyes on whomever is trying to open the Tyrant's tomb. I can't remember if this is where, it must be where Cole gets stabbed by Lorne, which was the most random event that happened. I don't know why this is how it worked out, but it felt so forced that she attacked and then retracted. It was weird. And I will say, in her perspective, when we do get it again, she's like, I don't know why I did that, and I don't know why I just didn't kill them outright. So we do have some reflection of like like it being a weird episode that just happened. Like it's almost everyone's brains detached and said this has to happen, and then they retracted and was like, why did that have to happen? Why did we do that? It's strange. So then Adjunct Lorne and Toole do get in to the tomb. That's the last scene, I believe, of that section. But the other thing that happens is Sari gets depossessed. Is that the right word? I don't know if that's the right vocabulary, but she gets released from the rope's possession, and she is then scrambling right outside where Kroop's group is. Majority of them are knocked out at this point, and so Crocus is the only one who can be like, I guess I'll bring you back to Darujhistan and we can figure out if your memories come back. That's where we end in the Gadrobi Hills. We then go to everyone going back into Darujhistan and going in for the party. A couple of things to note, like Cole has a mark on him now. Rallick is trying to get rid of that mark. That happens, but it also happens on Krull's temple. Once again, blood being given to a god that used to get blood sacrifices, so he's like slowly but surely coming back, which I love. Also, I should probably use they, them for Krull, because Krull is unknown what gender they are. Okay, and then, Paran comes back in with Cole, so there starts to be a convergence of that, and they go to the Phoenix Inn, and then everyone's at the Phoenix Inn. So they reconnect, but everyone starts to realize we need to go to this party if we want to do any executions, if we want to get known players to the assassins. Like, this is the party that everyone's going to be at, and regardless of what happens at this party, you definitely want to be there. Before the party even starts, the Jagged Tyrant is fully awakened, but Adjunct Lorne is fully gone by that point. But Toole has been like absent, kind of. He's been doing his own thing, so we don't really know what's going on there for a bit, but we do have 5 dragons battling the Jagged, so that was kind of cool. That was one of the coolest things that's happened in recent memory. So while that's going on, all the mages at the party are like, oh my god, there's like something seriously wrong happening and we can't like access our warrants, and because if we do, more than likely that tyrant's gonna kill us instantaneously because he's so much more powerful. But then this party has everybody that we have interacted with that we know is in Darujhistan. Highlights are Rallick officially has a duel with Or dies, so that means Cole will get his property back. Marulio deceptively got the lady who was running this party distracted during that time frame, and we can assume that she is also now dead. So then there's a scene where Kroop in a dream with Krull, with Toole, I forget who else is in there, corner the Jagged. They offer him a couple of deals. He says absolutely not and bamfs to a different person's body that's at this party. Turns out it is Uncle Mammoth, who is Crocus's uncle, which I haven't like talked about him at all, but like I guess he's kind of important. So he's taken over by the Jagged. And at this point in the party, we also have the Azith house, or the Dead house, depending on how you want to phrase it, being born because it sensed that something was very wrong. Something is happening that's very wrong and I can contain it. So it was birthing also in this green space behind the party, which is where a lot of our bridge burners are like hanging out and also figure out that Sari isn't Sari anymore and she's going by Apsalar now. Basically, huge explosion happens. The Jagged is like, Quickben's trying to contain it. Some of the other mages that stayed around are trying to contain it. And then Hedge throws a Moranth munition, and that completely obliterates the body that the Jagged was in, but it doesn't really get the soul of the Jagged until a root comes out and the Azith house takes it. Also at the same time, Ganos Paran goes through a warren unexpectedly and helps Toole restrain the Finist that had been buried, that acorn that had been buried, that Lorne had taken. Oh my god, there's so many things going on. So that gets resolved. That means the Jagged is officially in that house and it's restrained and no one has to worry about it anymore. Perfect. Well, then this party is pretty much dead and gone. However, there's still more things that are happening. Callum realizes that there are gas pipes throughout the city. That's where all the munitions are on. And if they blow up this city, they are killing literally everybody. Like, it's just going to spread like wildfire and it won't be contained. So he's running around trying to get the other bridge burners to not do that. He succeeds on that. People who have already left are going back to the Phoenix Inn. Oh, also I should note, Whiskey Jack's leg was broken during the whole debacle at the estate. So then Crocus has been running away, going to Baruch's house after he saw his uncle pass away. And this is where the Crimson Guard comes in. And I was correct that we meet them, but it is so brief. I think it's maybe 2.5 pages long that we actually get to see, maybe it's 3. We get to see them in action. The only character I can remember from the Crimson Guard is named Blues. And I saw like he was fighting Lorne as she's following Crocus and trying to kill him. And I was like, is this Blues? And then it goes down and we're talking to someone who's talking to Crocus and he's like, oh, that's Blues. He's fine. We get introduced to Fingers. We get introduced to Cowl, and then, oh my god, and then there's the whole event of Anamander Rake finally becoming a dragon. He fights the demon that was unleashed from Adjunct Lorne, who also can shapeshift into a dragon. That was really interesting. I didn't remember it shifting into a dragon form, but anyways, they fight in their regular forms. It's not necessarily like a big epic fight, but it definitely was a struggle. You could tell that they were powered at the same level, and we got the perspective of Crocus looking at it. So Anamander Rake is fine. He kills that one. We then go back inside to Baruch and the other woman mage that is part of their like elite mage group in Darujistan. So Vorkin appears, and what I didn't say originally is that she made a deal with Callum for the Empire that if she kills everybody that rules Darujistan, she then gets the High Fist title and then a bunch of money. Okay, so she's going after all of these mages, and she's doing a very good job. But she gets to Baruch's house and gets hit by 2 bricks by Crocus trying to defend Baruch, and then she disappears. And that's how Crocus saved them all. Once again, his luck winning out for him. We leave with Vorkin and Ralik running into the dead house to get away from the Tistandai, who are trying to kill them for the fact that they killed one of their own. And we actually meet Corlot. So I hope you followed all of that, because now it's the epilogue, and the epilogue is like 3 pages. I do need to backtrack a little bit, because at the end of this section, we learn that Dujek One Arm has been outlawed by the Empire, and that includes the bridge burners. He also allows the bridge burners to leave if they want to, because everybody knew that they were being targeted for death by the Empire. So, however, Dujek is on a mission to help Kaladin Brood become allies with him to help with the Pan and Seer. So he's asking if the bridge burners will meet up with him there, and he tells Whiskey Jack that he will be second in command. He will no longer be a sergeant. Okay, so now we can move on to the epilogue. Basically, our bridge burners are splitting up a little bit. So Sari, Fiddler, and Callum are no longer going to be with the bridge burners during this time frame. They are going back to the Empire, kind of heading towards Unta, which is the capital of the Empire. Also in that wagon with them is Crocus, and then also the other random guy that worked with the eel. He's in there. Quick Ben has an idea that he's like, oh, Whiskey Jack's not going to like this. And then Aganos is leading them, and they're meeting up with the Black Moranth to travel. So that's where we're at. That was the ending of Gardens of the Moon. There's so much that I feel like I missed and some highlights, but if I can think of anything else, I'll be adding it to the last part. But overall, I'm going to say this was a wild ride. I did not remember everything that happened in here, but I felt like Erikson really packed a lot of things in here that sometimes I wish we could slow down a bit, and other times we could have sped up. I'll talk more about that and some other thoughts about my reading experience with this book in the last section. Before we finish up this vlog, I wanted to mention that there will be a link down below in my description to help those that are in Minnesota and Minneapolis. Remember to help those in your community as well. So I have been editing my vlog. It has been over 2 weeks since I finished this book, and I feel kind of bad of where I left the vlog off, because it very much seems like originally I was just going to do highlights and not tell you guys things about what's going on in the book, and then the update that I did right before this had so much information that I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to follow along what's happened in this book. So there's going to be a few changes to my reading vlog for next month, and I wanted to go over those things as quickly as possible because this video is already long enough and I don't want to edit more than I already have to. So here's the book, and here are all the tabs. Just so y'all know, it's 102 tabs in this book. I did a thorough job. And just to make a point of how much I was using these tabs, I want you to guess which color was the lore tab. Just look at that. To that point, I have now found and bought tabs in one specific color so that I can just tab away all the lore. It does mean that the tabs in this book now will not match the rest of them, and that will annoy me, but I'm not retabbing this book. This took forever to do. Let's talk about that a little bit, actually. I got really downtrodden by the fact that I had to annotate so heavily this book, and I know that's on me, but going forward, I am going to try to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to try to update every 2 chapters or so instead of in the big chunks. Originally at the start of this vlog, I was doing it for every 100 pages, and that didn't work. I should have done it by every section of the book, and then I did that for the last half, so it throws me off a lot when I watched it back. I will say that when I did updates on my short form content, those made a lot more sense, and if you're a little bit lost in this vlog, I'd go check those out. You can find all of those down below in my links to other places. The other thing that I really need to do better on is is my reading notes. I definitely wrote down the things that I wanted quotes for, but I didn't write down every single tab and why I tabbed. And I know that's really extensive and a lot, but that's what I wanted. I wanted a reference book so that in the future, who knows how far from this moment in time, I will need that information. It's more like for archiving needs, and it's good to have reference points, especially when you love a series so much and you reference it pretty frequently. I did my best with reading this book, and I'm gonna do better next time for Dead House Gates. So this is the end of the reading vlog. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you learned something about Gardens of the Moon and also my love of it. Oh, I forgot to mention what I ranked this book as. I loved it. I still would give it 5 stars if this was my first read. However, because I know I like some of the other books a bit more than this one, I'm putting it to 4.5 just so that when I chart these next to each other, we'll have a definitive rating of which books are my favorite and which ones are my least favorite. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!